Welcome back, Crypto Fiends. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. We are currently here with the CTO and CEO of Unibright. And of course, we're also here with Hashoshi, Forrest, over on YouTube. Today, we're going to be answering a handful of the community questions that you guys sent me. I couldn't throw them all in here because some were probably, they don't want to answer them, but I also threw in a lot of questions in regards to the tokenomic structure of the Unibrite token. So let's get into it. We already touched on base ledger and the use cases for businesses, etc. on Hashoshi's YouTube channel. So go over there and check it out if you want to learn about those topics. But I did want to jump in and talk a little bit about Provide. The one thing I really like about Unibright is you guys really like to collaborate with pretty much anyone that wants to participate in your ecosystem, whether that's the imminent task force with AnyBlock and Chainlink, but focusing more on Provide. How has your cooperation been with one another so far, and has the distance been an issue? And also, for those who are not familiar, what's the reasoning behind Provide and Unibright's joint venture?
Yeah, many questions at once. So perhaps because you mentioned the EA and the Eminent Task Force, actually the Provide Unibright joint venture came out of that task force. So the idea of that task force was to build real blockchain integration projects in, let's call it, distributed hackathons. And in some of these hackathons, we were working closely together with Provide, with Kyle Thomas and his team. So it was a very natural thing to get to know each other by really doing something with blockchain and coding. So this felt very good from the very beginning. And the distance or the complete setup, I mean, a lot of things within the baseline protocol as well happen in the United States. And for us, being a German company, at the beginning, we felt a little bit like the European aliens. But due to COVID shutdown all over the world, it also became natural to work in a distributed manner even more. We have been used to that before, but it became the standard last year. So this was no problem for us. Yeah, and to actually answer why Provide and Unibright is a good match, mainly it is because our tech stacks really come together at a point where we solve parts that the other party doesn't solve, and together we can offer the full picture. And Base Ledger is also proof of that because it was built by Unibright and Provide.
Yeah, I mean, hard to add to this. It's about the personal feelings and the persons involved as well. I mean, we had this great feeling when we initially met, like, oh, we think the same and we work the same, and it's just a great setup, and with the dev teams as well. And talking to Kai is always very inspiring, very challenging, but it's a great outcome we see. I mean, we are much stronger together, I think, than if everyone would do their own thing alone. So it's a perfect setup for us to move forward. And I guess Base Ledger should be and already is the proof or one proof of it.
Wonderful. Now, the one part in the white paper that I thought that was quite interesting is when you guys sort of talked about how you were really in discussion if you should keep just the UBT token or if you should create a second token, do an IEO. So what was your kind of thought process on that whole situation? And do you think now that you kind of came out to the public with that article, part of the white paper, do you think that is set in stone where there's no chance another token's coming into play in the future?
Now I would
for the time being, yes.
I would rule it out, but I think the main idea was if you think about how we developed the token model around UBT during the last years, it was always a goal to add utility to it. And with Base Ledger, we finally saw the great opportunity to make a former, let's call it, input token that you would use to use our software, also to use as an output token, as a reward and revenue share mechanism in a proof of stake consensus setup. So yeah, it was just the right thing to do. And of course, this did not evolve like in the last week of writing the white paper. Oh, let's just keep UBT. I mean, we've been building this for a long time. We've been also rebranding softly UBT in the last months to the Universal Business Token, and that was for a reason. This was not for marketing, hey, nice new name, but it's really, we're enterprise focused, and to be a universal token means it's the only token you need when you want to do something enterprise blockchain or use base ledger. So this all evolved and felt very naturally for us. I think we both would not say there wouldn't have been another way, like an IO or whatever, but we also have to make the decisions, and this was the way that felt natural for us.
Yeah, I mean, the rationale was clearly to have one token that allows enterprise customers to access any product and service they need to get their business processes on blockchains. And that's why we have different products and services, base ledger being the newest, and I guess the hottest one and the one that was most missing. And then we want to have one utility token customers can use to access products and services, and community can use to power things like base ledger. So it's about having one ecosystem, and so it's the one token.
And perhaps just as a short note to come back to Provide, this was also one reason for that very deep joint venture that Provide went for incorporating the UBT token model to all the Provide products as well, because there have been many talks in the last year with other, say, software vendors that would be interested in our tech stack. But as soon as they touch the crypto field, let's call it that way, they are, of course, more, a little bit hesitant than compared to just buying a small company that built a great piece of software. That's what they do a lot of times, but really building something around that ecosystem and around that distribution and decentralization we already reached with the distribution of the UBT. You have to have this in your mindset, and this perhaps doesn't happen too often these days with more classical enterprises, but with Provide definitely, because he's one of the drivers of this technology.
And with Provide Payment, we now have the Fiat gateway for enterprise customers. So enterprise customers, they don't even need to touch or think about crypto if they don't want to. They can keep in their Fiat world, and still we have all the UBT thing happening in the background. So it's a great combination of the crypto world and the enterprise Fiat world, let's call it,
Yeah, I think that was a great move on your guys' part to integrate that Fiat option, honestly. I know a lot of people can kind of get scared because you're kind of weeding out the UBT token, but you're obviously not. It's still there. It's still doing its thing. But of course, you get the other Fiat option. And now with Base Ledger in play, who would you say the main consumer is of the UBT token? Would it be the stakers or the businesses?
This is an interesting question, especially how you define consumer. I mean, in the end, if you talk about consuming a software, like a software as a service offering, this is the input part of the token. So of course, everybody who wants to make use of Unibrite Provide technology to baseline something, they need to consume our software, and this includes UBT. But you can also be, as an enterprise customer, you could be a consumer of UBT if you at the same time be part of the consensus mechanism. So perhaps this is a perfect sign for that we now have a complete token flow or a real ecosystem that you can tell who's the actual consumer, because it's really a round trip for both roles and both sides of the ecosystem.
Yeah. The other side would be parties consuming UBT to stake them, to run validator nodes, or to proxy stake them. It would be some kind of consumption as well. We normally think at first about the enterprise customers consuming UBT, but of course the other side is valid as well.
Yeah, that's kind of the answer I was looking for. Kind of just like both sides really. I think what really changed the game with Base Ledger is before the investors, pretty much people holding on to the UBT token, they're pretty much just holding it as a speculative asset. They didn't really have a play in the overall ecosystem of Unibright as a whole. So I think that really changed it up, where you got the stakers involved, you got the businesses involved, and everybody's happy. Now, I want to touch on probably the most exciting part to most people in the white paper, which was staking. I know you guys might have a different view, but staking was definitely a focal point to most. Although there was no reward details in the white paper, can you share with us when that information could potentially be released? Where this is a few-part question, where the rewards will come from for node operators and UBT proxy stakers. Also, will there be KYC for proxy stakers, and will there be a minimum and maximum an individual can stake?
Okay, perhaps you have to repeat the questions.
Yeah, I can go back over certain the bullet points.
Yeah, I mean, from the big picture perspective, where do the UBT come from that act as a revenue share for those staking or proxy staking? The big picture answers, they are coming from the customers using products and services. And these UBT are being used to drive the whole ecosystem and are being used to do the revenue sharing.
Yeah, perhaps to clarify, if an enterprise customer only goes the fiat way, then still a portion of that fiat will be transferred to UBT by buying UBT on the open market and then distributing them as revenue shares.
So I guess that's super vital. You're right. Yeah, I mean, because
this is the easiest answer. So it comes from the input, and we spread it to the output to have a token flow.
Yeah, and besides staking and proxy staking, as exciting as it is, we also will come up with the idea of having grants. So taking some share and giving it to third-party developers or entities that do beneficial things for the ecosystem and for Base Ledger to come up with a well-incentivized ecosystem.
Yeah, because the great thing about, if we talk about Base Ledger, for example, compared to Ethereum, before that we were dedicating a portion of the UBT that we get from an enterprise customer to also use it to pay for gas costs or other blockchain transaction costs. And as these are getting lower with Base Ledger, of course we can use this portion to give it to the node operators or to incentivize the ecosystem growing by grants. But the answer is to all these questions is the same. It's the UBT that come in from the customer side, and those will be distributed to the output side.
But we're quite sure that it will be an exciting option, and we will have validator nodes and entities wanting to participate because of the incentivized ecosystem.
Wonderful.
I remember a second question with the time plan.
Yes, I had I think two more.
KYC.
The next question was KYC for proxy stakers, and then if there's a minimum and a maximum an individual can stake, a proxy staker.
So perhaps to first give a full picture, we discussed roadmaps internally, and if we should include them in the white paper or not. We felt it's a little bit to be speculative, because we want to build what we would call a test net already around real customer projects. So part of the test net, so to say, is already up and running because we have different Unibright stacks already interacting in a distributed manner, and then we have to add this consensus layer on it. So we decided not to have a time plan, but just be as fast as possible, as we always did. I think we earned some credits during the last years when it comes to the speed that we're developing. And with these first customer implementations, we would also decide on the actual metrics for the mainnet of our mainnet. There will be a minimum and maximum, surely, for how you can build a stake to keep the right ratio between distribution and performance. So we won't have 10,000s of nodes, but surely we shouldn't have 2 or 3. So the right number is, I guess, somewhere in the 2-figure or 3-figure range of nodes. So there will be defined numbers, but not at the state of the white paper publishing.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are mostly fixed on the staker side of things. Looking at proxy stakers, those proxy stakers working with one staker, say validator node, we want to see some competition there going on, so that, I mean, it should be something bilateral between both of them, that they can somehow attract proxy stakers, and the validator can, or should, in my opinion, be able to set the rules and conditions the party running the validator node wants to see. So we can't even say, because it will not be some strict rule from our side. I guess we will have exciting offerings from different parties running nodes, and thereby finding the right metrics that attract most people. But for proxy stakers, for example, I don't see the need for having lower limits for being a proxy staker, or
perhaps some technical limits, like not becoming a proxy staker with 1 UBT, perhaps. But of course, it's also the idea, or part of the idea behind the token model, that the proxy stakers could be people that hold UBT but don't have any technical expertise in how to validate on a consensus mechanism. And on the other hand, if you have a big server farm and you know exactly what you're doing, but you don't have a single UBT, then still you should be able to be part of the base ledger environment by inviting as many proxy stakers as possible to your validator node to build a decent stake. So this is the ratio we're trying to build.
I mean, from a technical perspective, you want to have, for example, one smart contract per validator node, and within this smart contract you have all the parameters that this node offers to the proxy stakers, and then every proxy staker can subscribe or send their tokens to that smart contract for that validator node, and then this thing is running like a mining pool. And they are doing their thing, and they have their revenue share, and everything is fine, or perhaps the other setup is better, and then they align somehow. So we try to build it that way.
And the same answer holds true for the KYC thing. What we can surely say is that the node operators themselves, they have to have KYC because they have to be confirmed by the council, so to say. So we know who they are. They have to agree on specific SLA levels with hosting environments and so on. But the decision on how the proxy stakers are playing into building that stake is a bilateral thing between the node and the proxy stakers, and we would not give any restrictions at this point in time if we don't have to.
It depends a bit on the options we give. I mean, I mentioned the smart contract option, and probably this will be handled differently from a legal perspective than if we have written contracts. Then with written contracts, KYC might be needed, but with a smart contract solution, perhaps not.
Or perhaps in one jurisdiction it's this way, and the other jurisdiction is this way. So if you have various nodes, then you still can go for various proxy staking mechanisms.
There's no legal advice. We're just still running through the things, but there seems to be some line of distinction between these two approaches.
And that's just to give some inside talk, that it's exactly the line that we had to draw. Do we really want to have everything in the white paper? Because then it means that lawyers are just spending millions on it and changed opinions like daily. I don't know. I'm just kidding, of course. But this was the point in time where we said the white paper is ready to be published because the complete system is outlined, but give us the time to work on the specifics while we're building it with real world cases.
And I think that's one thing I really, really liked about you guys. One thing I honestly noticed about a lot of the companies that I have interest in, work first, talk later, publish the white paper once you guys have the overall ecosystem figured out. Don't just come out with a concept and then, it's developed 5 years later.
Yeah, talk is cheap.
I wanted to bring Forrest in for a moment since he's the top tier developer. And I just want to ask you your thoughts on this overall staking concept, and if you see any downfalls to it, any pros to it, any additions that could be made.
Yeah, I mean, I think that right now, the idea that, average consumers, right, or average everyday users can be involved in an ecosystem that's largely tailored towards enterprise fundamentally is an ingenious idea, because it gives people less of a feeling that we're perpetuating a walled garden approach to enterprise tech. So if you have this, base ledger tech stack where, people can, with a relatively small holding, play a part and even potentially earn yield for participating in this, this tech stack or this architecture, I think it's really smart. Of course, over time, as, Stefan and Martin, you guys in your team continue to develop the economic side of it and what the ideal parameters are going to be, which takes the longest time out of anything. I think designing a secure and incentive aligned staking ecosystem is very, very, very difficult. And so when, this would just be a general piece of advice for someone watching, if you're getting angry because proof of stake or staking environment is taking a long time to flesh out, it's because it's got to be darn near perfect, or else it has bad side effects on an ecosystem.
But given to that approach, of course, if you told somebody like 3 or 4 years ago, building a complete integration ecosystem for whatever ERP system into the blockchain world is also something, if you just do the project planning, you would just account years for it, but that doesn't hold you back to actually building it. But I totally agree with you that with a token ecosystem, of course, you perhaps cannot do everything small step by small step, but at least have to give the full picture at a certain point in time. And that's what we tried to do with the publish of the white paper, to give the full picture in terms of how it will work. But when it comes to specific numbers on the detail of the token model, we still need some time. You're absolutely right with that.
For sure.
I had one question about Provide's custodial service. I saw that, say, for example, if a company wasn't able to get tokens on the open market, what parameters are in place where Provide could give them the token, give them the tokens instead of getting them on the open market? Is there any way to determine if they actually can or cannot get them on the open market, or are they just going to Provide instead?
This would be a question perhaps that should be answered by the enterprises who want to make use of Provide payments. For us, it was more the potential of giving them the opportunity. If you're the compliance officer of a company says, we are not allowed to hold any crypto, not one UBT, not one ETH, not anything, but we want to make use of the technology. We need something. At the end of the month, we need a regular bill with dollars or euros on it. And on the other hand, we have Provide and Unibright who say you have to use UBT, otherwise you can't use the software. So this is just a bridge between these two worlds. But I would not feel comfortable in answering it in behalf of the clients, why and how they should use it. It's just an offering. If an enterprise is holding UBT, they can bring it in directly. They don't have to use Provide payments.
Yeah, or if they already use Coinbase Custody for holding it.
Yeah, they can do so. Yeah.
I think that's really smart, for sure, because the trepidation, I think, for a lot of companies to even start is they want to stay at a pretty long length away from crypto and the holding of tokens, and they don't want to deal with it. And since every product in Unibright's portfolio or purview is about abstraction from the complexities of that, giving them a custody option makes perfect sense.
The only reason I was asking that specifically is I wasn't positive if Provide's custodial holdings are in the circulating supply. So I was thinking if companies kept just going to Provide to receive their UBT to use the platform, would that be sort of a loophole where the UBT token supply wouldn't continue to depreciate because they're just going to Provide over and over again?
Okay, that's a lot of speculation in one question, but from a technical thing, think of Provide payments just as a technical gateway. It doesn't change anything about how UBT come from the open market into the system, because it makes no difference if an enterprise customer buys them on open market and brings them in, or if he uses in real time Provide payments to do the same thing. So what happens with the UBT behind it is part of the token model, like we described, and this doesn't change with using Provide payments.
Provide payment has no secret backdoor to UBT.
No, it's like a gateway to whatever exchange, for example, at the point of purchasing this UBT from the client side is the best option to go. I would put it that way.
Wonderful. And while we're still on the subject of custodials, how has your relationship been so far with Coinbase Custody? Yeah.
Professional.
Yeah, that would be my answer. I mean, yeah, they are really professional. I mean, Coinbase Custody, it was a great thing. Of course, there was a lot of legal reviews included, token, smart contract reviews included, all of this, a lot of talks. I mean,
a lot of paperwork.
It's great. It's something we needed for the companies. And yeah, we're in contact with Coinbase. We like them, and we're watching what they are doing. And of course, they have some internal things to do with their ongoing IPO. But I see where the question is going.
It's a relationship that we like to deepen and build upon. Let's call it that way.
Good. I'm assuming it's not too easy to get on Coinbase custody.
No, I mean, all the legal review, of course, helps us in terms of how UBT is reviewed or seen within the complete Coinbase ecosystem. I think that's for sure. It wasn't easy, but on the other hand, it's always easy for us if we tackle it the professional way. And Coinbase is very professional, also in terms of communication. We had talks to other, let's just call it crypto players that are also big, but where it was just hard for us to build a professional way of communicating, let's put it that way. And this was very, very good with Coinbase custody throughout the process.
Wonderful. One question that was circulating in the community that I just want to run by you guys. Could you please clarify if there was or will be any changes to the max token supply of 150 million tokens? And if not now, would there ever be a scenario where the max supply could change down the road?
I have problems with these ever questions because, I mean, if you look at what already changed in the last 2 or 3 years in the blockchain space, I would not be the prophet telling you if, I don't know, Ethereum exists in 10 years or something, I don't know. But from a technical point, perhaps it's important to clarify, the token itself will always be will stay the ERC20 token that it currently is. So when we are talking about our mainnet, the token is still on Ethereum. And the max supply is part of the smart contract, and everybody can look it up.
Yeah, and to give the easy answer, the smart contract just doesn't allow minting any new tokens, so there can't be more tokens. And as Stefan said, the super consider all events thing. If all blockchains disappear, and we don't know, but given that things run normal. This shouldn't change, yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Could the community expect updates on how things are going with current clients? And has Unibright been seeing recent success with new clients wanting to utilize the framework, base ledger, or Frequity?
Yeah, so this is something that we really can say that the deal flow itself significantly picked up in 2020. Because of baseline, but also because of how Unibright positioned themselves in the last years with Frequity, for example. So you can always expect updates. I think what's perhaps a bit outstanding is that a bigger player like Kona really steps forward before the implementation, raises their hand and say, we built something. Not every client wants to do that because then they are measured on the outcome and perhaps they want to report on the success rather on trying something. So what we are currently building is extracting the things that we see in these first cases, Kona and other customers who will report on it after the implementation, and build something like a public sandbox environment together with Provide, where everybody can play around with our tech and see how a customer will see it. And of course, our goal is to have, I mean, at least from Unibright's side, we can always work on 2 or 3 main great projects a year where we try new things out, like Frequity in 2019, Baseline in 2020, Base Ledger this year. But the goal is, together with Provide, to really scale also on that client side and really show how enterprise adoption works. And with every client who wants to tell about this, we will do joint community updates, press releases, or whatever. Interviews.
As Stefan said, there are things to expect. And with clients in general, we have this dual strategy because we want to have only, let's say, 2 or 3 really huge projects a year, like the one we have with Kona. Just to give some insights, it takes huge resources from the personal stuff we have. We are not like having hundreds of developers. And so we want to see at most, as I said, 2 or 3 of these huge things where we develop new things and have month and month of development. And the second pillar is blitz scaling, being very fast in rolling out the solutions we already had and packaging them in an easy to deploy way, what we are doing with Provide, and then having this scaling opportunity. So it's this dual strategy we're running this year, and yeah, it seems to work.
Looks promising,
Yeah.
telling from the 1st of March.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I actually had one gentleman in the community that currently runs an electric business with about 30 employees, I believe he said. And his question was, will Unibright ever get to a point where any business will be able to just jump onto the framework and utilize it, or do you guys sort of review the businesses before?
Well, I think we review them for these 2 or 3 big projects with new stuff a year, because everything has to fit. We have to work together with their development teams, and it has to be a fit. But if we talk about software as a service, of course, as long as they don't, I don't know the English word. As long as they're a compliant company using other software, like you could use Legit, like Microsoft or AWS software, then they should be able to use our software just by clicking a few buttons. And we try to sell our software as a service tech to them, of course.
Yeah.
The major idea behind Unibright is being a software company that sells software to enterprises.
Yeah, and we are benefiting heavily from Provide and at that issue, because they are good at doing this packaging, bundling software, getting it to the customer, blitz scaling it. So even that company you mentioned, being a rather small one, should be able to, to access the software like one does with AWS or Azure at the moment, when you just use some database or whatever in the cloud. The same way should be with our products and services in the months to come. So, yeah.
Actually, there is a bigger update to expect from the Provide side in the weeks to come about the shuttle services. So exactly that automation scaling layer of our baseline as a service offerings.
Yeah.
So this will answer some questions.
Click a button and everything fires up.
And could you share just real briefly, what are some of your methods to attract new clients, or is that more so focused with Provide?
I think when it comes to the scaling thing, it entirely goes to Provide now. So the Unibright framework, or the Provide framework, if we rebrand it that way, is also sold by Provide to clients. And when it comes to building these first new customers, luckily it changed from cold pitches in 2018 to rather disappointing times in 2019, to really dealing with the requests that are coming in now to us and picking the best ones, especially from the, as I said before, from the team setup and from a also personal standpoint, because we do this every day and it has to feel good for us as well. So we want the people that we are in touch with every day, because we're developing something with them or have architectural discussions. We have to like them. So it's a good position we have now, that we really can pick the projects that are fun to work with and have big potential.
And I know earlier you guys said you don't usually like to share a roadmap because you normally work ahead of schedule anyways. But what are some of the milestones you think that you could be achieving in Q2 of this year?
In Q2, meaning starting in April then?
Yes, April to July, I believe.
Yeah, so from the outcome that we have on the current projects that we're working on, of course, we want to show results there, although this is again a question that we would have to answer together with the clients. From Unibright's perspective, it will be, of course, about updates on the base ledger. Let's call it testnet, like I explained before. And luckily hopefully things that we are able to share, but as usually we do not want to announcement before, so I don't want to give any hints or something, but just expect that we are working on different fields and bringing all our products together, not only baseline, but also Frequency and the framework part. And Q2 is still some months to go, so you can expect new things from us.
Yeah, Q2, perhaps it's not so, it's not so easy to say, but with base ledger, I think we want to see most of the work being done this year. So if it's Q2 or Q3 or whatever, but this year we want to see most of it. But of course that's what we want to do, and we will work hard on it. But let's see how the blockchain and DeFi space develops in general, because we expect some great inputs as well. We could even be faster. So let's see what happens.
We feel comfortable with sharing the news and not sharing the announcement.
Now, for all three of you, what is your favorite part of Base Ledger and why?
Well, I have, of course, an opinion because I'm part of the team building it. No, I think Base Ledger is, for me, it's the great thing that Base Ledger brings together everything that we built with Unibright so far. So it's really the missing link from framework over frequency with DeFi, the baseline approach, and all this comes together in Base Ledger. This is what I like.
Yeah, that's the product or service side of things. For me, it's about the tokenized ecosystem. I not only like the word, but I like the idea behind it, like coming up with a token model that is able to just run this sustainable or growing ecosystem, attracting developers or people that want to work on it, and at the same time make it more valuable to customers. So like a flower that is growing, I like this image, and for me it's very inspiring to work on that model and this tokenized ecosystem thing.
CEO speaking, CTO speaking. Of course, I was referring to tech. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I figured that was going to be a little biased, but I figured I'd throw it in there. And Forrest?
Yeah, I think for me it's I'm also a tech guy, but I'm going to go with something that's more overarching as my favorite component. I think it's the overall message that this sends, that enterprises can and should be a part of this whole changing of the guard to a new paradigm where even some of the same tech that they're using can be leveraged more effectively in the context of a highly integrated blockchain environment. And so the agnostic approach has been the reason why I've always been a fan of Unibright, saying, here are the tools. Yeah. We want to allow you to work largely the same way that you've done, but still capture the value of blockchain. And that's my favorite part.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I know some people probably think I'm like the moon boy that wants the token to go to $1 million, but I really like the data privacy part of it. I think that's the one part that is really going to have enterprises onboarded into the industry, and the tokenomics, the ecosystem, that's great, but that wasn't absolutely necessary compared to obviously the data privacy to be compliant. So that's my go-to. Now, one last question. This is from Basel in the community. He wants to know if you guys ever sleep at the speed of progress and development on every expanding front. He says it's unbelievable.
Thank you very much. There's a reason why we zoomed out that video so much, so you can see how tired we actually look. No, I mean, we are used to it, and there's always peak times, especially when we publish something and then have interviews around it, which we love to do because it's telling the message. But there are also times where we can really get our heads together and don't have any impact from the outside world, and then we can also catch some regular sleep.
But normally peak times last for years, so it's a little demanding.
Yeah, the peak lasts for 4 years now, you're right.
I mean, if you're not excited about what you do, then of course you wouldn't, I guess you couldn't do it, but yeah, it's about fun and liking what you do, and then you can endure a lot. So it's still great, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure the community is very thankful for all the dedication and hard work you guys put in while we sit back and wait for the next announcement.
No, you don't actually sit back. You really dive deep into how this all works, and you educate and you tell the message. So this is really appreciated, and also from Forrest.
Yeah, and it's very encouraging for us to work harder. And
it's nice to see that there are people who actually read the white paper and not just go for the headline and go.
Yeah, if I could be honest, I think other than the Bitcoin white paper, I believe that was the first white paper I actually read through from the beginning to the bottom, and I had a good time.
Great.
Yeah. What a good choice for the first white paper to read.
Yeah, but we tried to keep it readable and entertaining.
There was a few tongue twisters in there, but I got through it.
Yeah, the Germans.
Yeah. Still, we're Germans trying to speak in our not native language, but yeah.
Well, thank you.
Place people always. I'm sorry, Ryan.
No, you're good. You're good.
the place people always get lost is like on the second page. They immediately start throwing out like the really complex functions that go into guiding consensus or how they figured out what the optimal node numbers are, and then people quit. So that was nice and readable for you guys.
Cool.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for taking your time to come out and speak with the community. I'm sure they're very appreciative. And Forrest, thank you so much for tuning in as well. If you guys want to see the first half of this interview where they talk about some of the more technicals that I can't keep up with, go over to Forrest's channel. I will leave it linked in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next.
Thank you.
Thanks.